Hi, everybody. I'm Bill Sanders, and this is Watch Art Sci, the art and science of watch collection. Today, what I want to do is to talk about some watches that you can possibly get very good buys on. And their prices are all over the place, but I think with most watches, most watch collectors have what I'll say is a radar. Let's say they're like a certain type of Rolex. They're looking for a Submariner of some type, and so they're always sort of scanning. In other words, it's on their radar. And what I would like to do today is to bring out some watches that have some exceptional watchmakers and sort of coming from unusual places. And so let's take a look at it. And if nothing else, these might be added to your radar because you might find a really good buy on one. These are not well known, but the people who do know, they know something how to get a good buy, I'll put it that way. Okay, first of all, Maîtrise du Temps. This is a brand that has, and this is the chapter 2. There were chapter 1, chapter 2, and chapter 3. Chapter 3, I think, was done by Kari Voutilainen and Andreas Streller, or that may have been, and chapter 1 was by, I'm trying to think who did that. I think it was Roger Dubuis and somebody else. I mean, these are really top guys. Now, the chapter 2 is the most abundant, the most available. And so let's take a look at that. And there are two types. One is the tonneau shape, and the other is round. And the tonneau shape, they're hard to find, and they tend to be a little more expensive. The MSRP on one was $69,000, and really high. I found one for $15,800, but unfortunately it's been sold. But it'll give you an idea of sort of where they can go with that. Daniel Roth and Peter speak Marin. I think he dropped the Marin part. So they have a movement called the SHC01. It's automatic, and they have a goblet-shaped rotor on them. It's sort of cool. 22 karat gold rotor, 50 hours, and 4 hertz. What they have, these are triple calendars. They have it in round also, and you can see on the back, if you look on the left there, you can see there's a little top button up at the top that says month, and then there's one at the bottom that says day, and then the pusher that's at about 2 o'clock is the date, and so you have the day, date, and month that you can set. The month and the day are set in right below the crown, between the not the crown, but the lugs, between the lugs and the top of the dial and the bottom of the dial. Really interesting, both on the tonneau and the round shape. The round shaped ones, though, I was able to find some better deals. They're $12,000 isn't cheap by any standards, but these things have been $40,000 and $50,000 watches by two top watchmakers. This particular one was, like I said, Daniel Roth and Peter Speak. So they're ones not to. I mean, if you don't like, 45 by 56 millimeter, they're big boys. They're pretty good size. It's not a matter of like you say, oh, I don't like it because of this or that, but just to be on the radar, something if maybe one falls into your on the radar that's somebody wants to unload at a really great price, it's worth considering. It really is. They're really interesting watches. And if you see a chapter 1 or chapter 3 at a good price, they're that would be something that was very much grabbable. Okay, let's moving right along. Now, the next thing is a funny thing. Gerald Genta and Daniel Roth at one time were both with Bulgari. And what they brought with them for some reason of Daniel, the company that Daniel Roth had been with, and he had his own name brand. It was bought by Bulgari, okay, and so the same thing with Gerald Genta. Same what happened to both of them, and so they were there, and so they basically started making watches, many of which had been their own brand, and but then they started doing it with Bulgari. Now, the the calibers are sort of interesting. There's a Bulgari caliber called the GG for Gerald Genta 7722. That turns out to be an in-house movement. A used one, $8,000. I found used on the usual places they look. This one's called the Bulgari Octo by Retrograde. And it's got a jumping hour, and then it has retrograde minutes, and then down in sort of the 6 o'clock area, sort of the big subdial, is a hand date that's also retrograde, going from 1 to 31 and then popping back again. It's a very interesting watch. Now, one that I think is even more interesting, I think it's a heck of a good deal, is one that's called the Gerald Genta GG Bronze Titanium Jeffica Flyback by Retrograde Safari. What a name. There'll be a quiz on that one. Now, this one's got a caliber called the GG 1004 base Girard Perregaux. Then it's got an automatic retrograde module by Gerald Genta. I don't know what it is about this watch. It's very different. I like it a lot. I like the retrograde that they have for the minutes. I like the jumping hours, and then I also like at the bottom down there, the retrograde thing. For 5,400 I think it's a pretty good deal. But it's something, like I said, it's not for everybody. But if you like, Genta is known more for his design than he is for watchmaking. However, he did some watchmaking, or at least module making. So I think that's one of the things for Bulgari. Now, the next one, another one was the Bulgari Daniel Roth. Now, I'm a big Daniel Roth fan, and I have two of his watches. I got them before the pandemic, I think. And then the prices just went sky high, and Daniel Roth was no longer affordable. However, like I said, he went to work for Bulgari, and he brought with him a lot of his movements. And so I started looking around for some of these, and I found one called the Daniel Roth Endure Chrono Sprint. It's a chronograph. I'm not into chronograph, but that's neither here nor there. I found this one for $4,900, which I don't know what the original price was, but I can tell you right now it wasn't $4,900. It's got a caliber 1306 and a DR for Daniel Roth. Chronograph, date, hour, minute, second, 45 hours of reserve on it. So it's, if you're into chronographs and you're into top watchmakers, there's sort of a side door, I'll say, to it through Bulgari. Now, one watch that I have wanted for a long time. In fact, I came this close into getting one, but there was some weird thing happened, and it wasn't the dealer's fault. It was sort of the limits that had been set up by me and by this and by Chrono 24. Chrono 24 had sort of chipped off just enough more so it went beyond what I could afford, and so the deal went through. Whatever Chrono 24 makes off of those sales, they lost. The company that I was dealing with in Japan was a great company, so it wasn't there. It was just one of those things. So I've always wanted one, and it's called a Papillon. Now, the one that I found here, the Bulgari, this one is about $6,000 less expensive than the one with the Daniel Roth label. This one is called the Bulgari Papillon Voyager. And it's got everything the Papillon has. It's a Daniel Roth movement design. It's called the DR 1307, automatic self-winding, jumping hour, Papillon minutes, power reserve. Papillon means butterfly, by the way. 4 hertz frequency. Both of them are 4 hertz. So this, again, now there's a lot of other ones too. These are just 2 of the Daniel Roth ones. There are some other ones that are really interesting ones as well. Like I said, this is not for everybody, but it's something on your scanner. You see one of these things at a really great price, it may be something that you'd be interested in. Now this last one, this is something that is very interesting company, Hautlence. Now, Hautlence won an award at the Grand Prix this last year, and I was reading about it. They had sort of a new look with it. Their rectangle TV screen shape one on the left. And much to my surprise, some of the movement was done by Agenor, one of the top movement makers. Now this one, I found this one is available at Del Rey. If anyone, if you go take a look at it, say hi to Federico. I also found it, I think, at a similar price on Chrono 24. And it's called the Invictus Neon Green. Now, it's got nothing to do with the Invictus brand. And I don't know why I like it, because I'm just not a chronograph fan at all. But this is one of those ones that I said, this is really interesting. Well, what is it running on? It has a Dubois de Praz 293 skeleton movement on top of a Soprod A10 base. Now, Soprod A10 itself is based on a Seiko 4L, which happens to be one of my favorite movements. I just love the Soprod A10. It was because Seiko had to say, we're going to get into high horology, so they came out with the 4L thing, and their buyer didn't care for it too much because it was too expensive. And so somehow Soprod got it. And the thing that's about the Soprod A10, what they were hoping, is the exact same size as an ETA. I forgot which one it was, but it was a really popular ETA. So basically they were saying, hey, if you've got all of the bases and the dials and the cases and dials and everything for this ETA, you can use this one because it has the same dimension. I love that. I bought one. I have one. They are such good little movements. Okay, now the other one I found, this one is called the HLQ, Q for quantumine, I think, which means calendar in French, and I probably mispronounced it. This one I found for $9,900. Now this one had been way up there, very expensive Hautlence. And the thing about these guys, I don't know, I think just about everything that all of the movements are done by Precise Engineering, which is owned by I think it's the Mayland Foundation that owns H. Moser as well. Now, these are not bargain basement prices, but they're not bad. I mean, they're better than you're going. I mean, when you have an interesting movement. Now, the trouble with Hautlence movements, they don't seem to have names. It sounds like, guys in the skunk works get together. They say, "Oh boy, let's make something interesting," and they do. This HLQ-07 Classic, I think they're around 40. This one I think is supposed to be 41 millimeters, and it's also, I found somebody else said it was 47. So I'm not sure how big it is, but it's the movement itself has this connecting rod system for doing the date. And it's a very ingenious one. Down at 6 o'clock, you can see the little five, that's the date. Then you have jumping hours over at toward 10 and 11 o'clock, and it's showing the date is at 10, and then it pops to 11. It just has a jumping jumping hour in there, and then the minutes are off on the side. Fascinating watches. And again, they have a lot of different ones for Hautlence. I'm not crazy about the TV shape either, but I saw this guy with one on his wrist and they look pretty cool because the wide part goes up and down rather than out. I mean, it doesn't look like, you're wearing a T-bone or something. You got this watches, and and if you like chronograph, it's a very interesting one combination. But the thing of it is that Hautlence just, I think they got these wild men there making these incredible movements. We'll grab one of these and put it together in this really interesting watch. And they got whatever they put together, and they were in cahoots with Agenor. They won a Grand Prix award. I don't know. It's one of those ones, so like I said, on your radar, you're looking at these things, and all of a sudden, Hautlence, something to look at. Everybody's looking at Rolexes and Omegas and the usual suspects. This group of watches is one that are sort of off the beaten path, and I thought you might be interested. Well, let me know what you think. Put them on your radar, and and you don't have to look at them. You can just sort of like it, they're there. And if you see something you like, let me know. This is an opportunity to subscribe if you like. Until next time, this is Bill Sanders for Watch Art Side, the art and science of watch collection.